Hey YouTubers, what is up? Simon here, welcome to HannaTalk, and today I'm chatting with a very special guest. Now, he's a voice actor that has voiced across from anime to Western animation and even to audiobooks. He's best known as the voice in Pokemon for playing a variety of Pokemon in the Pokemon series, such as Drew, Zigzagoon, and a whole range of characters, has played across in all types of series in the Yu-Gi-Oh world as well. Please welcome Oliver Wyman. Oliver, how are you?
I'm very well, Simon. Thank you so much for having me here.
That's no problem at
How are you
all.
doing?
I am very well, thank you. Alright, so on to the first question. So, how did you get started in acting?
That's a loaded question. My brother is an actor. My older brother Nick is actually a very successful actor. He's done a lot of film, a lot of Broadway actually. In fact, if you've ever seen Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third Die Hard movie, Uh, he gets to beat up Bruce Willis at the end of that movie, which is one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen in a film. Getting to watch my brother beat up Bruce Willis. But yeah, no, I kind of followed in his footsteps. When I was a kid, I joined a group called ABC, Acting by Children, and we put on original shows, musicals. I think we did about 6 or 7 plays a year, and I did that for a long time, and then somehow found myself doing voiceovers, and one thing led to another. I started doing language tapes. A lot of people, when they learn to speak English, when they want to learn to speak American English anyway, they would listen to a tape of me and about a dozen other actors saying things like, "Excuse me, is this the soup spoon? Thank you very much." Um, and when I started working on that, I met Veronica Taylor, who I'm sure you know was the voice of Ash for many, many years, the original Ash. When I met her, she told me that she was working with at Four Kids, doing uh, literally half a dozen shows there, I think at the time, and I was I was just thrilled at the notion that I could possibly do this. I've been a cartoon, an animation fan for years, and I used to work in a store called Forbidden Planet, which was one of the few places you could get anime back in the day. Um, so I became a big fan long before I started doing it. When I was hired originally, I think the first one of the first cartoons I ever did, the first anime I ever did was Iria the Zayram, and I played Dr. Toka, and I was just over the moon. I was ecstatic about that. Absolutely thrilled to get that job. So yeah, that's the long answer.
That's brilliant. And as you mentioned before, your first voiceover role was Era Zero as Dr. Toka. What was it like when you got when you got the series, and what was it like doing that role? Because that was your first anime role.
I have to say, I was really surprised. I thought I would get the kid because I do have a high, I have a fairly high range, and I end up doing a lot of high pitched voices. Um, and when they had me read for Dr. Took, I thought, oh, this is a much older character. They're not going to cast me for this, and they did. The fellow um, was a guy named Michael Alban, who's unfortunately no longer with us, who was a great guy, a wonderful director, and just a great guy to work with. I'm really sad that he's not with us anymore. But it was again, it was a thrill for me to be working on animation, which was something I was already a fan of. Um, and it was later when I got cast as one of the lead characters in Shaman King that I really felt I came into my own as a voice actor in animation.
That's absolutely brilliant. And speaking about with Shaman King, as you mentioned before, Veronica Taylor, you've worked with quite a lot in the Four Kids series. Was Shaman King like the first anime that you worked on with Veronica Taylor, or was that Pokemon first?
I can't remember if I did Pokemon before Shaman King. I know she did some work on Shaman King. I don't think we ever recorded together. That's one of the things that was and this is usually the way it is with animation. You do all of your parts separately, except for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm.
When we did the Turtles, and for some reason, I guess because the guys had great chemistry, um, they would record all four of the Turtles together, and whatever character was interacting with them would be in the room with them. So we got to do a lot of things and come up with a lot of routines together that wouldn't have happened the same way if our parts had been recorded separately. But that was one of the things I really loved about the years at Four Kids doing the TMNT show. That was another thing. I was selected to play the Fugitoid by um, uh, uh, Kevin Laird, I think. I can't remember.
I'm not
Peter
exactly
Laird, Kevin Eastman.
I'm not
Sorry,
exactly sure
Peter
either.
Laird.
It's okay. But but that's absolutely brilliant though, and that's definitely true. In like Western animation, you get to interact a lot with the voice actors in the studio, as opposed to Japanese animation where you're doing your part by yourself. And it's what was it
Yeah,
like like working in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, having to interact off the other voice actors?
that was the most fun I've had doing animation, certainly. Um, Wayne Grayson, in particular, is a really funny guy, and he would always be crack. He was always cracking us up, um, uh, in between takes or even in the middle of takes. But the show was very. It was a featured show in the 4Kids lineup. It was a featured show, and they put a lot into it. We had at one point we had three directors at the same time.
Wow.
We had one woman directing us over the phone from California, and then we had two directors that were sitting in on the session. So they did that. There was a room that was pretty much just the Turtles room. It was the nice big room. Um, and like I said, it was just a real treat to work with those guys. Wayne Grayson, Frank Frankson, um, Michael Cinder Nicholas, and uh, and Sam Riegel. Those were the four Turtles back then, and I really, like I said, they were all friends, and I enjoyed working with them very much.
That's brilliant. That is fantastic. And do you still keep in contact with any of the voice actors you've worked with over from Four Kids and from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I'm still, on social media. I still send messages to some of my friends. I have to say, I miss my friend Sean Schemmel so much because he moved to California, which is where he belongs, where he should be, because there's so much more work out there, and he's possibly the most talented voice actor I know, um, and not possibly, probably, almost certainly, and a great guy. I miss seeing him. He always made me smile. Very very funny guy, super smart, and like I said, just unbelievably talented. His range is insane. He played so many characters on Shaman King, and I was just in awe of his work on that show. I really was. He's a dynamite performer.
That is fantastic. And speaking about, of course, with Four Kids, as you mentioned before, Pokemon. What was it like working in the Pokemon franchise?
Pokemon was a lot of fun. I'd actually been. I'm a gamer, so I had actually played Pokemon, uh, and when I got an opportunity to be on the show, I was thrilled. I knew all the names of the Pokemon, and I think the first one I got was Zigzagoon, uh, and then I think Glalie, Medicham, and Drew. But working on the show was always fun. Like I said, I love the material, um, and and you'll notice that I'm very careful about the way I pronounce the name Pokemon, because it's one thing that it's the one note you'll always get when you first start doing the show. Everyone goes Pokemon, Pokemon, and they go, yeah, that's good. Do it again. It's poke. It's not pokey. It's poke. And so I'm always, I'm conditioned to this day. I will say Pokemon, and I'll correct people like a total geek. I'll be like, yeah, no, sorry, it's poke. Really, I know anime.
That is
You should listen to
fantastic.
me. But yeah, it was again a big fan of games and cartoons in general. So that was a real treat for me.
That is fantastic. And with and of course when the announcement was made that 4Kids had to basically give the rights of Pokemon up to the other company, were you aware of what was going on
Yeah,
during that time?
I have to say, I was very unhappy about it. Um, I felt it was terribly unfair to the fans and to the actors to just let all these people go. Veronica was Ash for the first 7 years, I think, and they've now recently. I think it was just this year that Pokemon has now been running with the new cast longer than with the original cast. The original cast, uh, but like I said, I think it was 7 years, and now it's up to 8 for the new cast. The new cast are great. They're very talented. Um, I'm used to Brock sounding like Brock. You know I'm used to uh, uh, Eric Stewart and as uh, James Rocket. You
Mm,
know, I love that voice. He had a very distinctive voice, and I understand they it was really about money, which is unfortunate because, like I said, I think it's jarring for everybody that all of a sudden everyone's got a different voice. And I was not. I was actually asked to audition for for the roles that they were replacing, and I at the time I didn't do it because I didn't feel comfortable, and I didn't like the way they had just canned everyone. So I stepped down. They were also paying less money, to be
mm.
quite honest. The money had gone down, and it wasn't great to begin with. So I wasn't about to take a pay cut. Um, and then um, the show ended up leaving. It was the production company that took it over ended up losing the contract, and it went to um, a place called Duart, and I think I'm not sure if Three Beeps or two. I'm not. You know what? I'm not sure who has it right now. But whoever has it right now are people that I know and like. I'm not sure exactly what the company is called right now. But they're people I've worked with before who I know and love working with. And I've since I think last year I did one role, at least one role on the latest season. Um, I want to say Arceus.
Um,
It's
yeah,
on my IMDb page. Um, but there's one character I did get to do with on this show recently.
that's fantastic. And absolutely agree with you. I mean, me being an incredibly huge Pokemon fan myself, and actually having to meet Veronica Taylor when she was in Melbourne, Australia, 2 years ago
Oh,
at
really?
Supernova. Yes, it was a great experience. And meeting Eric Stewart as well was a fantastic experience for me. I love the old series just as much as any fan myself, and I love the new series as well. I love both versions for very different reasons, of course, and it's still going incredibly strong, and I know it will continue to go very, very strong for a long time. And was there a favorite character that you voiced in favorite character that you like to voice in the Pokemon world?
Um, I, I have to say the characters in Pokemon. I mean, Drew Drew was not a great character. He was kind of a villain. He was a foil for May, um, and he was really arrogant, um, terribly obnoxious. So I didn't really. I can't say that I have any real. I mean, I would probably be Drew because he was the one that I did the most. But outside of Pokemon, I would say Morty from Shaman King, the character that was in the Japanese version, Manta Oyamada, and that he was the most outrageous and the most humorous and the character I think I put the most of myself into. I had a lot of fun with him.
That's fantastic. One of the other roles I remembered you playing the most was from an anime called Mew Mew Power. What was it like doing that series?
I'm trying to. Is that was I Cineclon Sardon?
That's correct.
Is that who?
Yes,
No, I'm
that's right.
thinking of another show. Sardon was fighting Foodons. Um, no, that was Grill. I can't. You know what? I can't. There were at that point when I did Mew Mew Power. I remember I remember the sessions, but I don't remember the characters. I think I was a bad guy, and I might have been a principal of a school. It was not a show that I did for very long, so I can't honestly, I can't remember. I want to say Cineclon Sardon.
That's
I
correct,
think
yeah.
that was one of the characters I played. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah,
And then Principal Hamburg.
yeah in Magical Do Re
If
Mi.
that's the same show.
Ah, well, Cineclon
Is that right?
Sardon. Yeah, Cineclon Sardon you did in Mew Mew Power, and Principal Hamburg you did in Magical Do Re Mi, which was another show I was going to mention about. What, those
That's
two.
right. I was confused because they had the same sort of they had the girls in animal costumes.
And I have to say, those two series, I actually really liked enjoying this series so much. And I know fans have been giving quite a bit of negative reviews around during that time. When you did those two series, what did you personally think of them if you ever watched any of the episodes once you've done the voices, or what did you personally think of them after you've done them?
I have to tell you, I really I I never watched those shows.
Ah,
Never.
okay.
Um, Initially, and this is the unfortunate thing. Initially, when I started doing um, when I started working for 4Kids, I would set my DVR and watch every show that I worked on and watch the ones that I wasn't working on. Um, and and then after a while, it got to the point where I would record them, but I never got around. I think I've literally got two old DVRs that I've been meaning to, burn the file, get the recordings out of there because I have all the shows that I recorded, but I never got around to watching them or burning them to DVD. So yeah, this is one of the things I find really difficult now. I have stacks of movies to watch. I have stacks of games to play. I have stacks of books to read, and there's no way I'll ever get to half of them. So yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to catch up with Mew Mew Power or Magical Do Re Mi.
Yeah.
But you enjoyed them, so
Yeah, I
I will
actually
take
really
your
liked them
word
for
for
what
it that they were good.
Yeah, I think back at the time for what they were, I actually thought they were a really good series. They were a little bit like outrageous and such. Like Magical
Yeah.
Doremi in particular, it was a bit of an outrageous cartoon, but it was still a really good series though. And the other series you're also best known for is the Yu-Gi-Oh series. What was it like playing in Yu-Gi-Oh? Because you played across some
Oh,
four series from
that was a lot of fun. I got to be villains most of the time in Yu-Gi-Oh. Although no, I was Siegfried von Schroeder, who's one of the best characters one of the most fun characters to play, and and then I got to play Aster Phoenix, who was a pretty big character in the end of that series, as I recall. As a matter of fact, I heard they're bringing him back, but I haven't heard anything from 4Kids, so I'm guessing they got somebody else to be Aster Phoenix. But it was great fun. I was never into the card game, so it was always a bit. I didn't know, you know, anything about it. I just yelled the name of the thing that I played. But I do recall at the time that I used to work with kids, teaching them how to use computers, um, and a lot of the kids I worked with were they came from wealthy families, shall we say, and I remember one kid was really into Yu-Gi-Oh, and he asked me. His mother wanted him for his birthday. She wanted to let him get some Yu-Gi-Oh cards on eBay, and I thought, oh, okay, well, let's see what card you're looking for. And he was looking for it was a set of cards, and it was 5 cards that made up one guy. It was like the 5 parts of his body,
Uh,
and I think it was $600 on
oh,
eBay. And his mother said, yeah. And the kid was, he was like, I think he was 8. Um, so he got the cards, and I guarantee within a week they were, bent and had probably been folded into paper airplanes or something. But no, I was astounded that it was so huge. But it really, when I learned that I was Aster Phoenix, who apparently, like I said, was a fairly major character, he ended up being one of the characters in the Yu-Gi-Oh uh, arcade game. There was a arcade card game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and Aster was featured in that. I don't know if they used any of my voice, but I always want to take a look at that.
wow, that's fantastic. And that's absolutely brilliant. And one of the other roles that you're also best known for in the Western world that I remembered you most was in Courage the Cowardly Dog. What was it like doing a show like that?
Oh, I I have to tell you, that's that's a mis that's a mistake.
Oh,
I've seen that credit, and and I think what happened was some fan out there heard the character and thought, oh, that's got to be Ollie Wyman, um, and I mean, unless I got drunk and did an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog and I don't remember it, but I don't think that happened. I really don't. There was a show. Um, I haven't done a lot of Cartoon Network shows, but there was a show called on NBC called some Kenny the Shark. Kenny the Shark. Kenny the
yes,
Shark.
Kenny the Shark.
Um, and I played a character called Burton Plushtoy the Third, who was a rich little villain. Um, Great character. But yeah, no, it's funny. I've seen that. It's really it's surprising to me how many erroneous credits I have out there. It makes me wonder if there's anything out there that's credited to somebody else that I did. But there's an audio book called Tooth Trouble, Ready Freddy, and it says read by Oliver Wyman, and it's not. It's my friend Fred Berman. Um, so I don't know. And then, yeah, the that Courage the Cowardly Dog. I've seen that before. I don't know. I don't know. There's also there. I think there's a credit for a live action TV show. And it says Oliver Wyman. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not me. I've done one feature film uh, that I appear in, and then a whole bunch of animation, and coming up on 300 audiobooks now. So yeah,
That's fantastic. And
that's the extent of me.
and speaking about, of course, with audiobooks, how did you end up getting into do audiobook work? And as you and have you and is audiobook voicing audiobooks a lot easier to animation?
Well, uh, it's first. Let me answer your first question. I got into audiobooks pretty much the same way I got into animation. I was doing the language tapes, and in this case, one of the producers I was working with, uh, he had me do shorts. I was doing the language tapes, and he asked me if I would do short stories. I said sure. So I said some mystery stories, um, and I really enjoyed doing that. And he was quite pleased with my work. So he one day called me up and he said, "Hey, how would you like to do Lance Armstrong's audiobook?" I don't know if you're know Lance Armstrong. He was a famous cyclist, and he won the Tour de
Oh,
France, I
yes,
think,
yes.
6 or 7 times. And then later they found out he had been doping. But before any of this happened, I recorded his first and second.
Fantastic. Is audiobooks like how easy are they compared to like animation or doing Japanese anime?
Well, what audiobooks I will say are very different and quite a bit more difficult. Um, there's the amount of time it takes for one thing. I usually when I record 1 or 2 episodes of a cartoon, um, I'll be in the studio for at most 2 hours. Um, Doing an audiobook, depending on the length of the book, I'll be in the booth 5 hours a day, 5 or 6 hours a day for a week or two, depending on the length of the book. If it's a 200-page book, I could generally finish in a week. Um, Anything more, although again, what happens is I'm given a lot of, because I do a lot of character voices, I'll be given things with a lot of different characters, often epic fantasy novels, and those can take a long time to slog through because I have to keep track of all the characters and I have to figure out who is who I essentially cast a book. Sometimes I'll I'll ask an author to give me a list of if they were to cast a movie version of this book, the list of who would play each character, what actor they would cast for each character, and that's been enormously helpful. Um, I don't necessarily do impressions of people, although sometimes I do, but it's great to have an idea from the author who they pictured or who they heard more appropriately uh, as the voice of any particular character. I did a series for, as a matter of fact, is he Australian? I can't
Um,
remember. I think he is Australian. There's an Australian author named Mitchell Hogan, and I think it's his first. I did his first books. I just finished the third one. The first book is called A Crucible of Souls,
wow.
and it's very interesting because whenever I do a fantasy novel, I just assume, because of Lord of the Rings and all the great traditional fantasy books, I just assume that all the characters speak with British accents. That's just the way, in my mind, I hear them. So I did all of these characters with British accents, but I asked him uh, to give me a list of actors that he would cast as these characters if he were to cast the movie. And one character, he said he thought Robert De Niro would make a great Amerton. This character is a
Hmm.
great character. Um, and and I thought, wow, Robert De Niro, that's great, but how does Robert De Niro sound with a British accent? That's weird. And I came up with his voice. He kind of sounds like this. He kind of whispers, but he's got sort of a Cockney accent, and that's Hamilton. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's how Robert De Niro would talk if he had a British accent, if I may say so myself. But I had a great time with that series, and I highly recommend it if you enjoy fantasy. Pick up the book or certainly download the audiobook. Um, Great fun, great characters, and I think, yeah, there was, over the 3 books, I think there were a couple of moments where I was genuinely moved. So I highly recommend it. Really good stuff. Mitchell Hogan. Um, the, the full series is called the Sorcery Ascendant sequence, I
That's
believe.
fantastic.
But the first book is A Chronicle of Souls. So highly recommended.
That's absolutely fantastic, Oliver. And final question, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to make it in the industry?
Mm, let's see. Um, where you are, I'm assuming it's the same sort of. We have the same sort of programs that we would have here. There are a lot of people that offer, if you look online, there are a lot of people that offer classes that generally they either do one-on-one or they'll meet with a group for a few hours a week, and then at the end of, say, 6 sessions or 8 sessions, you'll get to meet with a casting director, and you'll get tips from them, or you'll get to perform for them and get critiqued by someone who actually hires people in the business. Those programs, I don't know about in your money, but those programs generally are about $500 to $800 American. So they're not cheap, but a good one, like I said, a good one will introduce you to somebody in the industry, like a casting director, and will also give you a demo tape or demo CD. No one uses tape anymore. A demo MP3. No one uses discs anymore. This is how old I am. But that's probably the best way to go about it. The other thing you could do, and honestly, I got into it through language programs, and if you can find a publisher that does language programs, get in touch with them and see who produces their audio programs, and see if you can get in touch with them, because it doesn't require a lot of acting ability. It's an entry-level voiceover job, and it actually pays pretty decent money if you can get the work. The other thing that I would recommend doing, just to keep practicing, read aloud all the time. Read aloud to yourself. Reading aloud actually uses a tremendous amount of your brain. It's good exercise for your brain. There's a Japanese fellow who wrote a book about literally exercising your brain, and one of the things that they recommend is reading aloud. But there's also, again, I'm sure they have similar programs in your country, but here we have an organization called Lighthouse for the Blind, and people can go there and volunteer to read for sightless people. And it's generally, I don't think it's reading books to them necessarily, because there's a library service that supplies audiobooks for blind people, but often they need people to help to read their mail to them, which is a wonderful thing to do, and like I said, great practice. Just reading aloud is great practice. So the more you do it, the better you'll be at it.
That's absolutely brilliant advice. Oliver Wyman, thank you so much indeed. It's been an absolute honor to talk to you.
Thank you, Simon. It really means a lot that you thought to have me on your show, and I'm truly honored. I feel, as a voice actor, I've said this before. People always see this on my fan page, but voice actors in general are psychic vampires, and voice actors never get the feed because we never hear the applause. So it means a lot that there are fans out there like you who appreciate our work. Thank you very much, Simon.
That's absolutely no problem at all, and hope to see you in Australia someday. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care now.
Thank you very much. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Oliver Wyman's work, you can follow him, as he said, on Facebook and on Twitter as well. And don't forget to subscribe down below to HannaTalk, as well as subscribe to my music channel, Simon Hanna Music, as well as follow me on both Facebook and Twitter, and check out my official website with links down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is Simon, signing off.